There is a man lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at a ceiling he cannot see, running a conversation through his head for the 9th time, a conversation that hasn't happened yet. He is rehearsing failure. He is manifesting nothing, and yet he is manifesting everything. He is building brick by brick in the dark, the very outcome he fears most. You have done this. I have done this. It is perhaps the most universal ritual of the modern mind, and it is also the oldest problem Stoic philosophy ever tried to solve. Because before anyone spoke of manifesting anything, Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, in the privacy of a war camp, a single instruction that contains the whole of what follows here: that the things which trouble us are not events themselves, but our judgments about them. Relax your mind not as an escape from the world, but as the precondition for shaping it. That is the actual secret behind manifesting everything you want. Not chanting it into existence. Building the mind capable of receiving it. Most people never examine why they suffer. They assume the suffering belongs to the event, the job that didn't come through, the person who didn't call back, the plan that collapsed. So they wait for circumstances to change, convinced that peace is something that will arrive once the world finally cooperates. This is the first and most expensive misunderstanding a mind can make, because it hands the keys to your inner life to things you were never going to control in the first place. Epictetus lived this lesson from the inside. Born into slavery in the 1st century, he owned nothing. Not his body, not his schedule, not even, for a time, his own leg, which tradition holds was broken by his master. And yet the philosophy he built and later taught as a free man rested on a single, almost brutally simple division. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Our opinions, our desires, our reactions, up to us. Everything else other people, our reputation, the outcome of our efforts, not up to us. He did not arrive at this as a comforting slogan. He arrived at it as a survival mechanism, because the alternative was to spend a life in chains twice, once in the body, once in the mind. Here is why this matters to you right now, whatever your circumstances. Every time you replay an argument, refresh a phone for a reply, or grip a plan so tightly that its failure feels like your own death, you are attempting to control what was never yours to control. And a mind that is busy gripping the ungrippable has no hands left free to build anything. This is the actual mechanism behind a relaxed mind, not passivity, but the release of a grip that was exhausting you for no return. Try this tonight. Take one thing currently weighing on you and ask plainly, is this within my power to decide or only within my power to respond to? If it's the latter, you are not being asked to stop caring. You are being asked to stop wrestling a wall. Put the weight down. You will find almost immediately that there is more room in your chest than you remembered. But knowing what to release is only the diagnosis. The question that follows is harder. Once you loosen your grip on the world, what do you do with the space that opens up? This is where Stoicism stops looking like resignation and starts looking like power. Because the same insight that frees you from the ungrippable also hands you something far more valuable than control over outcomes. Control over the lens through which every outcome is experienced. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire beset by war on its borders and plague within them, wrote to himself that the mind adapts and converts every obstacle into fuel for its purpose, that what stands in the way becomes the way forward. He was not being poetic. He was describing an operating principle he needed daily, because an emperor cannot choose his crises, only his response to them. This is the actual engine of manifestation, stripped of mysticism. Your outer world does not rearrange itself because you wished hard enough. It rearranges itself because a mind unclenched from fear and resentment starts making different decisions, clearer ones, calmer ones, decisions a frightened or bitter mind would never have made. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius, returned again and again to the idea that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, that the mind's anticipation of disaster is almost always heavier than disaster itself. A relaxed mind, in the Stoic sense, is not one that expects only good things. It is one that has already made peace with the worst thing, and so is free to actually see what's in front of it, and act on it with precision instead of panic. This reframe changes what wanting something even means. You stop outsourcing your peace to the arrival of the thing you want, and instead build the peace first, because that peace is the actual instrument that will get you there. A calm mind negotiates better. A calm mind notices the opportunity. A frightened mind was too busy flinching to see. A calm mind finishes the work instead of abandoning it out of frustration at hour 11. The practice is simple, and you can start today. Each morning before the day has a chance to hand you its first irritation, spend 3 minutes deciding in advance how you will meet difficulty, not what you hope will happen, but who you intend to be regardless of what happens. This single act, small as it seems, is the difference between a mind that reacts and a mind that directs. And yet reframing the mind is not the same as living it consistently. What happens when the pressure is real, sustained, and the old habits come roaring back? History does not let us pretend this is easy, and it would be dishonest to suggest otherwise. Consider Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman famous for the rigor of his Stoic convictions, who spent his life opposing what he saw as the corruption of the Republic and, in the end, opposing Julius Caesar himself. Tradition holds that as Caesar's forces closed in on Utica, Cato chose to take his own life rather than accept a pardon from a man he considered a tyrant, a final act meant to embody Stoic resolve in the face of what he judged an unbearable compromise. Historians still debate the details and the wisdom of that final night, and it is worth saying plainly. This is not offered here as an instruction to emulate, but as a stark illustration of what happens when conviction is not balanced by the very calm that Stoicism also demands. Even a mind trained in philosophy can, under enough pressure, mistake rigidity for virtue. This is the warning inside the wisdom. A mind that grips its own certainty as tightly as it once gripped outcomes has not actually freed itself. It has simply changed what it's clenching. The goal was never to become unbending. It was to become unclenched. Somewhere between Cato's iron resolve and the anxious mind lying awake at 3 a.m. is the actual target. A steadiness that bends without shattering, that holds its values without needing the world to agree with them on schedule. You will feel this cost in smaller, quieter ways. The day you finally relax into a plan, and then it's disrupted, and the old tightness rushes back in, the flash of anger, the urge to control what cannot be controlled, the whispered thought that maybe calm was naive all along. That relapse is not failure. It tells you where the grip still lives. Notice it without punishing yourself for it. That noticing, repeated enough times, is the actual work. So if even trained minds can fall back into the old grip under enough weight, what does it look like when someone carries this all the way through, and it actually holds? James Stockdale is one of the most documented and studied examples of Stoic philosophy in practice in the modern era. A United States Navy pilot shot down over Vietnam in 1965. He spent over 7 years as a prisoner of war, enduring long periods of solitary confinement and repeated torture. Before deployment, Stockdale had studied Epictetus, and by his own later account, That study became something he leaned on directly in captivity, not as comfort, but as structure. He held on to the distinction Epictetus drew between what was his to control his character, his responses, his integrity, and what was not his captors, his conditions, his release date. He also later described what came to be called the Stockdale paradox, the necessity of holding two things at once: an unshakable faith that you will prevail in the end, combined with the discipline to confront the brutal facts of your present reality, whatever they are. Notice what this is not. It is not blind optimism, which Stockdale himself observed tended to break the prisoners who relied on it, since it collided too hard with reality and shattered. And it is not despair, which surrenders before the fight is over. It is the exact midpoint. This entire speech has been walking toward a mind relaxed enough to not be at war with its circumstances, and disciplined enough to still be building quietly toward what it wants, inside conditions that offered it nothing. This is what manifesting everything you want actually looks like, stripped of the mysticism. Not a mind that wished a cell door open. A mind that stayed whole inside the cell, decision by decision, until the door opened on its own timeline and was ready unbroken for what came after. Look back over the distance we've traveled. A mind lying awake, gripping what it cannot control. A mind that learns to release that grip and finds in the space it opens the actual raw material of change. A mind that forgets this lesson under pressure and mistakes stubbornness for strength. And a mind that finally holds both halves at once, faith and realism, calm and discipline inside the hardest conditions imaginable, and comes out the other side intact. These are not 4 separate lessons. They are one motion, viewed from 4 angles. The relaxing of the grip is the manifesting. There was never a second step. You do not need 7 years in a cell to practice this. You need the next 24 hours. Tonight, before you sleep, name one thing you have been gripping that was never yours to hold: an outcome, a person's opinion, a timeline you cannot enforce. Set it down in writing if you have to. Then name one thing that is entirely yours, a single action, however small, and do it tomorrow without waiting for permission from the world to feel ready. That is the whole track, repeated daily. It is the only mechanism by which a calm mind becomes a changed life. The emperor knew it in his tent. The freed slave knew it in his exile. The prisoner knew it in his cell. And you can know it tonight, in whatever room you're sitting in now. The greatest battlefield was never out there. It was always the small, quiet space behind your own eyes, and you have just been handed the terrain map. What you build on it now is entirely up to you.